So this is a shot of my workbench, and I'm going to show you how I actually created the male creature's heads. It started off with this very basic shape. It's an open cup, I guess, and what we wanted to do was place a foam ball in the middle and then close it. For the foam heads, what I wanted to do was give myself the ability to take things in and out. So as you can see, these eyes slide in and out. I've done the same thing for the ears. The ears will go into the side of the head like this. They kind of screw in like that, and eventually there'll be material around that, and that'll screw in all the way. And the same thing happens with the horns. As you can see here, our little creature has his horns, but they just slide in like that. Now, a big part of successful stop motion animation is having your character blink. It just adds a lot more realism to the performance. So I've had to create some eyelids, and to do that I've used Sculpey, Super Sculpey, which I just basically smooshed over the actual eyeball and then cut around and then pulled off and then baked. So you can see that when you pop that over, it looks like our character is blinking. In fact, I'll just replace that one with this one because it's a little bit better. And then we have a full eye closed. Now, of course, if it's a half blink, because a blink usually consists of 2 frames, with a half blink and a full blink. Originally, our creatures had noses that looked like this, which were just sculpted out of Sculpey and painted black with a bit of white dry brush. But I didn't like it. I think it made the creatures look too much like a little dog. And so I wanted to create something a little more unique. And so I created these sculptures out of Sculpey instead. And I've got a regular mouth, smiling mouth, and over here I have a mouth that will be used when he first sees the female open her mouth about to eat him, and I'm going to try to animate it so that it slides open in shock. You can just see it's basically little teeth in the back of the mouth. So we've had a couple of changes to the design of the inside armature of the male creature. I use the term armature very loosely because this is just a terrible hack. I've created a couple of tie downs which will allow me to secure the character to the set by using a bolt from underneath. As you can see, this just screws into that nicely and will go all the way through the other side. I needed to weigh down the armature as well, because when I had the body and the head was attached, it was kind of forward heavy. It would fall forward because it was only really filled with a foam ball previously and some stuffing, some wadding. So this block, which I think is just, I picked it up for about $8 from Home Depot. I think it's just a knob for fencing. It's got a screw there which I'm not using. I just stuck it down with the 2-part epoxy. And then I stuck this armature wire through this hole that I drilled. So I'll cut that in half, and then hopefully when I stick that inside the male, it'll poke through the hole and I can attach the head to this wire. So here we have a finished male body. But the problem with this body is that there are a couple shots in the film where our little male has to stand up, and unfortunately his head's going to be back here. So I needed to create a second male body where I could not only have him stand up and have his head up the top, but also have little feet come out the bottom and have them be animatable. And this armature inside here has no wires or anything inside it to allow for that. So I had to create a second body. So here we have the armature that I created. And what I've got going on here is a left and right leg, which would push through the material and eventually have little feet attached to it. And then I have a spine that goes through the middle, which has a neck shaft and also has a tie down hole so that when it is standing up I can screw it to the set and it won't move. The base of it has 2 tie down holes for when I want to have the character laying on his back and his little feet wriggling in the air, and these tie down holes will allow it to not move when he's being animated on set. So the finished armature will slide into this empty puppet skin and poke out the holes that I'll create, and hopefully it'll all work, both standing up and laying down with little feet sticking out. Well, somehow I managed to get the armature inside the empty puppet, and you can see here the legs are sticking through little tiny holes that are punctured through the material, and I've created these little fingernails out of another piece of armature wire, and they're stuck together using this product called Instamorph. Now, Instamorph comes in these pellets which, once heated up in boiling water, become soft and malleable like clay, which then allows you to compress it into different shapes, as you can see here, and then after a few seconds it cools down again and becomes a solid plastic. It's very, very tough. In fact, the armature inside had Instamorph around some of the joints to keep it together.
So I will say I don't know how to paint these. I'm complaining.
What are you doing? You're painting these
littlest
tiny little nails. If I can grab focus on those. Stop complaining. Those nails have to go on the male creature's toes, on his little feet. So we have an example here of some that have been clipped and then some that haven't. The original wires that are coming through. Yeah. Christine's painting this tiny little...
The second batch of tiny little nails. The first batch broke.
Tiny little sculpey nails, which need to slide on here after they've been painted. Here we have a male creature, and this particular puppet has been fitted with a blood pressure monitor, which I picked up from Walmart for $15, I think. And I removed the actual casing so that just the balloon is on the inside, and you can see coming out the back we've got the actual pump and the dial there, or the pressure indicator. So if you have a look, I'll just start to pump. And there we have it. Breathing, just release the air and it goes back down. Tighten the valve, pump again, release the air, and it goes back down. So once we stop motion animate this, it'll look fairly convincing. Here we have our female monster, and she's not complete yet. She's got her ears, horns and eyes in place, but I still need to create the light that comes out of her head. I've just got a placeholder nose actually in that spot, but eventually I'll replace that. Right now I'm working on an armature which needs to be placed inside the empty puppet, and that's created out of armature wire, of course, and here's one that I've started working on already. So here we have the semi-finished armature, and you can see the two sides brought together, and I've secured the spine with just more armature wire which is wrapped around in 3 places. And now to strengthen this, I'm going to use Instamorph, which we talked about earlier, which are the plastic pellets that once heated up becomes a moldable plastic, and I'm going to squish it around the middle and it's going to become one hard piece of plastic by the time I'm done. I've also got the nuts here, which will eventually also get stuck in using my Gorilla Glue 2-part epoxy. So here we are with the final armature. We have Instamorph bonded around the spine and around the feet. They are securing the nut in place, although I do have the 2-part epoxy glue. The bolts are screwed into the bottom up into the moldable plastic, so I've created a channel all the way up, so it goes quite deep, and that's pretty much it. I now need to insert it into the puppet and figure out how to make the claws pop through. So, Christine, what are you making?
I'm making the top female jaw.
And after you finish that, you'll be doing the same with the bottom teeth. So here we are now creating the bottom jaw. We're not exactly sure how well these two will fit together in the mouth. As with everything else in this production, it's a bit of a work in progress. R&D on the fly. Work it out as you go. It's the indie spirit. So the top and bottom jaws are now complete, and I have to find a way to get them inside our puppet's mouth. I also have built this plastic jaw as well, which will be inserted inside and behind the material here, and that will give it some rigidity, I guess. Is that a word? I hope so. But the way I'm going to fasten this to the mouth is by sewing on these Velcro strips inside the mouth. If I sew Velcro in here and then I stick Velcro onto the back of these guys, hopefully they'll just insert into the top and bottom pallets of the mouth. So we'll see how we go. I've managed to fit both sets of teeth into the mouth. The only problem I have now is how difficult it is to keep the mouth open like that. And right now I have it propped open with a little prop, but in the film I'll have to find another way to keep that mouth open. I haven't painted these teeth yet, so that still needs to be done as well. Now for the lure that hangs from the female monster's head, we used dollhouse light bulbs, but I had to find something to put over the top of that to make it look more alien. So I turned to this little bag of pineapples, plastic pineapples, which I picked up from a jewelry store. And you'll see that it's just like a piece of jewelry that you can thread jewelry wire through. So I cut off the end and I drilled a hole down the back and ended up with this. So we've managed to put the light in to the female's head, and now Christine is pressing fur against the armature wire that bit of a bump on the camera with her head. And she's doing this by applying a layer of glue, which is actually a spray glue but sprayed into a cup, so that she can apply it with a skewer. And she's already cut up bits of fur. And is
I
now...
can't concentrate. I have to concentrate. I can't talk to you and do this.
Alright, well we better sign out so that she can get to work.